the way that I do is set up the agenda for a meeting, make sure that we go through the topics, but leave always a space for people to feel safe and talk about the things that they can talk about. And then with that, you create that friendly environment. That's going to be natural. It's going to be awkward in the beginning because
Mm.
everybody does not feel comfortable doing that. But then after a while,
Welcome to the Project Management Experience, where we would be sharing real life experiences of project managers who are doing amazing and well, and as well also surmounting challenges, all the challenges that come with project management. We have on today's episode an interesting fellow. And yes, we always have interesting fellows, but this one is super, super interesting. Her name is Daniella Pereira. She has over 15 years experience in project and program management and 6 years as a certified project manager. She has a CSM. She's a safe agilist as well. So I can't wait for you to delve into this specific episode. So let's dive in. Welcome to the Project Management Experience, where we will be sharing real life experiences where project managers are scaling the project management career, doing outstanding, doing amazing, amidst a lot of challenges. And on today's episode, we have Daniella Herrera. She has over 15 years of experience project managing people, projects, programs, and what have you. I'm going to leave all the rest for Daniela today. And thank you so much, Daniela, for joining
you're
us on
welcome.
today's episode. And first of all, let's meet you. Who is Daniela and what have you been doing in the project management space so far?
So just before we go there, just I want to say thank you for the opportunity to be here with you. I think you're an amazing professional. So really appreciate the time. Um, Sorry, say again your question.
Let's meet you.
Oh, okay, sure. Sorry, I just want to make sure that I said that before. So my name is Daniela. I have a computer science background, which I completed back in Brazil. I live in
Mhm.
Canada today. I moved to Canada in 2006. And I worked in different companies since my start. So I worked in IBM, AT&T, different types of customers at that time, always supporting customers. So they were related to internet or mail or networking. So I'm putting everything in the same bucket. I'm telling the story as a whole. Um, we don't have time to go in details on that, but different technologies, different infrastructures. At that time was there were implementations of data centers, and so it was already related to projects back then. Later, other companies that I joined, I worked at Bell with mobile app software development. It was a very interesting road, short, unfortunately. And then Equifax, which was in the finance stack, very interesting projects there as well on the digital transformation. Something about me, I'm very friendly, optimistic. That's how I do. Uh, she knows because we work together. And that's how I do it. And I like to work on the project manager, to work on the projects. Something about certification, I finished in 2015 timeframe, so it's about 6 years certified as a project and having project manager roles, which started back in AT&T, and then different projects there, right? We can go through that on the other questions like in more details. Um, and I have other certifications as well, CSM Safe, as you mentioned. ITIL Foundation is something that I'm working on.
Mhm.
Yeah, and that's that. That has been my summary of this past years.
Wow, thank you. I probably can say that you're an encyclopedia of knowledge when it comes to project management. You've been there, you've done that, you've worked with all the giants of technology, fintech. And yeah, I can say that for certain. I've, of course, worked with you. You're an amiable personnel. Like your personality shines through all the
Oh,
time.
thank
Thank
you.
you so much for all you do, Daniela. And really, really happy to have you here, really on board. Um, of course, we want to use this opportunity as well to, speak to people that have been in the field or people
Sure.
that are planning to come into the field of project management. And I would like, first of all, to ask you what really fueled your desire to go into project management, and then how did you start that
Okay.
journey?
So it was literally back in, I'm going to say here the date, around 2004, maybe around that
Mhm,
time when I had that in mind, that
mhm,
that's what I want to be in my life. So I was pretty certain about the path that I want to go with. Because when you start on the IT career, you can choose when you start to evolve, you can choose different paths, right? Or you
mhm,
keep being in IT, or you
mhm,
go to a little bit more managerial career, right? So that's how my personality would talk to me and said, you need to, I always like to organize things, to help people. So I think that's my path. I want to be, I want to continue be very close to IT, but use it
mhm,
as a foundation, right? Keeping my
mhm,
my learning there. So
mhm,
that when about that time when I decided to be, but I lots of things change in life. So that's when I moved to
mhm,
Canada. I could not
mhm,
pursue that road. I had to go back to my career when I arrived
mhm,
in Canada. So I started to be a system support analyst again, but on the network side.
mhm,
And then later, when things start to really calm down and I see a light in the end of the tunnel, that's when I went to a project manager certification.
mhm,
Something that I realize is on this road is if you don't have the certification, you
mhm,
cannot fight for the having a role. So
mhm,
something that was very important and made me make this decision to go on this path of studying a couple of months. That's not
mhm.
easy to get there, right? So that what happened back in 2015 timeframe. That's when the certification came. So it was something that short, long story short, was always in my mind, but of course I had
Mhm,
to change a little bit. So it's
mhm.
something that it's based on the personality that you have and what you're seeking for your career.
Okay, nice. Thank you so much,
You're
Daniela, for
welcome.
sharing that. So, would you say that the first step to being a project manager would be to take the certification or to get a job? What would you say is the first step?
I am a believer that
Mm-hmm,
experience brings, um, if you have the experience first, it's
mm-hmm,
easy to understand the foundations they study,
mm-hmm,
right?
mm-hmm,
So I was fortunate enough to be able to work on projects and very close to project managers back when I was in IBM, back when I was in Brazil.
mm-hmm,
So if you can, so depend. It really depends. The answer is really depends where you are. Really depends on the
mm-hmm,
moment that you are. Really depends on the company that you are working for and what you are
mm-hmm,
doing. But if you
mm-hmm,
can find an opportunity, even as a coordinator, really right basic, really junior level, that you can
mm-hmm,
start to get your feet wet to understand what that is, and then you start to study for. I believe that's the better approach, but that's what worked for me. It could be different from
mm-hmm,
person to person, right?
mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you so much for that, Daniela. What I hear is that it really varies. It depends on your personality, depends on
Yeah.
your strength, and I love the fact that you said you have to, or it's important. You try to start from the rudiments. That's from the basic, from being a junior PM or junior coordinator. Because I truly believe as well that it helps a lot, especially if you're getting into that space for the first time. Going straight into becoming a project manager is possible. It's possible, but as much as possible, you want to really eliminate, trials and error, because a lot of companies today have zero tolerance for errors, right? So you want to
Hmm.
get your feet wet, like you mentioned, understand what the space is like, and before you start to think about moving on to a project manager level, or maybe you should take the certification. So I kind of agree with you, Daniela. Thank you so much for sharing
You're
that.
welcome.
I love the fact that you are always ready, even in any environment. Look at you, you're in the car, and yet you're delivering. I can say
You
that
have
for
no idea
project
what
managers.
behind the scene, a lot of going on, but yeah, that was a good opportunity that I had. So always a
Yeah,
pleasure.
thank you. So, as a project manager, managing different projects, and how would you say you effectively prioritize and stay on top of all projects at the same time? Maybe you're managing two to three, four or five projects. How do you really stay on top of each of all those projects at the same time?
It's very hard, right? So I think first of all, everybody needs to know how many projects you're dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody needs to understand that
Mm-hmm.
we cannot work 24 hours, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's very important. But on our side, when a project manager is having different projects like that, I think
Mm-hmm.
it's key to standardize your documentation. Don't create something
Yeah.
special for one project or one customer that the other
Mm-hmm.
customer don't have it. Or
Mm-hmm.
if it's a must, sometimes you need to try to standardize and
Mm-hmm.
when you have everything, how can I say that? It's like I'm going to use here a bottle of wines, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you are producing these bottles, it's so
Mm-hmm.
mechanized and it's
Yeah.
way quicker to make that. So it's the same thing in projects. So if you
Mm-hmm.
can regulate yourself for like a
Mm-hmm.
standard documentation and standard times, and the meetings needs to be the same as well, right? So if you
Mm-hmm.
have daily meetings or if you have weekly meetings for one project, try to keep the same for the other project. And
Mm-hmm.
once you leave one meeting, have those tasks. And if, let's suppose you are in a meeting and then there is an additional discussion that needs to go into like in a deeper conversation with the other stakeholders, do that right
Mm-hmm.
away.
Mm-hmm.
Don't keep that in your notes, so then you're going to do the next day. Just try to keep up, like to be on top of the things
Mm-hmm.
as fast as you can, so
Mm-hmm.
then it's easier to manage your time to go through all of these projects. So that would be that's how I do, and then that would be my suggestion, I would say.
Yeah, I see that that definitely works for you, because I've worked with you and I see how you stay on top of things. And before you know it, you're out of meetings and we're getting your action points immediately through the conference page. I'm like, oh, Daniela, she's just on the spot.
Oh, but you were good too. But yeah,
Well done,
it's not,
Daniela.
and I have to be fair. It's not always.
Mhm.
There is sometimes that you cannot do that on a daily basis. But I think that's the
Mhm.
best way to do it. Try
Okay.
to be a production, like a factory, right? A
Mm.
industry. Like try to really um, produce things the same way that a manufacturer would do. So just try
Mhm.
to keep that in mind.
Okay, from what I hear on this, and I think that has to do with quality as well.
Mm,
Being able to ensure that you have standard processes, standard policies,
yeah,
and I see that a lot of companies are actually missing that, especially with regards to having a PMO that
yeah,
should be there to function to help guide the project managers, ensuring that everyone are doing the same thing the same way. Because yeah, like you mentioned, having a standardized process really helps, a standard policy and standard documentation. So I kind of agree with you on that. Yeah. So hear it, folks. It's very important to ensure that you have standardized documentation, policies, meeting cadence. Let it be the same across board. That way,
yeah.
it's easy for you to stay on top of your projects. And I wanted to ask you, Daniela, and really I've been dying to do this. Um,
I'm afraid now.
how do you manage to work with stakeholders? Like you get on the project in the first week, everyone is your friend, you're already connecting with everybody, laughing with everyone, everyone is sending you emails. Like, what is that magical? magical anecdotes or a recipe that you have to ensuring that everyone loves you, everyone wants to relate with you? How do you do it, really? Because I think that as a project manager, you really need to be you need to have strong interpersonal skills with all your stakeholders. So how do you do it, really? Tell us, share with us.
Um, I think it's more that's really related to my personality, how I am. I
Mm,
really like meeting people. That's something
mm,
that I always would say would put me in some trouble sometimes, because I really like talking to people and understand the different perspectives that people has. I like to listen and say, why does the person A thinks like that and person B
mm-hmm,
thinks like the other way, right?
mm-hmm,
So
mm-hmm,
I would start from there, but then but it's challenging for me as well because there are different types of personalities that you get along and some people that you don't get along, and in a project you have to get along with everybody. You have to
mm-hmm,
understand, try to make a friendly environment, like making everybody collaborate, and that's how I truly believe that a leadership should be needs to have empowerment, right? And in your team. So the way that I do is I leave, and sometimes it's not doesn't work very well sometimes, depending the crowd that you are. But I still prefer doing that. Like I really like, so the way that I do is set up the agenda for a meeting, make sure that we go through the topics, but leave always a space for people to feel safe and talk about the things that they can talk about. And then with that, you create that friendly environment that's going to be natural. It's going to be awkward in the beginning because
mm,
everybody does not feel comfortable doing that. But then after a while, they are going to feel that they can talk about it, and then people are going to feel more safe that they can collaborate with each other in the meeting. And
mm,
then and what I like is to, oh let and behind the scenes what I do is, oh, let's go for a coffee, oh, I'm going to get some water, things like that. It makes you break the ice, and then it makes the meetings needs to be, of course, business related, business goal, but needs to have a little bit of fun, because otherwise
mm,
it's very boring waking up and going to, because it's very heavy, right? It's very stressful, it's very demanding. So the meeting needs to have the project maybe needs to have a touch of a friendly environment. um did I answer the question? I think it's okay.
definitely you answered the question, extensively, I must say. Some of the things I picked from that is, one, ensure that you try to make that environment a safe space for people. You want to
Yeah.
ensure that the tech team, the development team, the product owners, the managers, everyone that you're working with, sees you as a safe space for them to, let you know when there are challenges, there are issues, or else you wouldn't be getting the right updates and they wouldn't even feel free to open up, right? And the
Hmm.
coffee chat thing is something I definitely need to learn. Focus on the work thing. So I
Coffees are
definitely need
great.
to pick up that. Yeah.
Yeah.
The coffee chats, let's go to lunch. That's a great idea as well. So thank you so much for
Hmm.
sharing that. And I love the part where you talked about us spicing up, meetings, make it a little bit more fun than just focusing on the work and getting the updates and moving on. So
Yeah.
that's
Doesn't th-
definitely a fantastic one.
yeah. Doesn't hurt. Like I don't know, maybe 1 minute. Like even
Mhm.
simple questions. How was your weekend and things like that,
Yeah.
and create
Mhm.
something in common. That's all. I'll
Yeah.
stop talking now.
All right. So, can you tell us about a specific project that you would say was very challenging for you? How did you manage that project end to end, and how did you basically highlight some of the success factors for
Okay.
PMs out there? Yeah.
There's one that I liked very much. So it was the customer was on the manufacturing field,
Mm-hmm.
and I was working at that time in the finance operations
Mm-hmm.
organization. The scope of the project was to recover revenue, and customer was not very happy. So because they were paying more than what they should and things like that. So basically, there was a lot of anger. The customer was very angry. So it was something important was, as I mentioned, was something important just to highlight. It was an external customer.
Mhm.
They were not happy with the service. They were happy. They were not happy about the bill they were receiving.
Mhm.
It was very not according to the service that they agreed on. So I joined as a project. I joined on that all of that process later, and then I had to make the customer happy, right? My company won the revenue back because the customer stopped paying. So very challenging, and because it was a lengthy process to have this all of these invoices corrected to them. So
Mhm.
we had to review all the orders that they placed around, like it was a global thing, not
Mhm.
one specific site. So it was a global site, 200 sites around the world, different
Mhm.
regulations, different invoices, different taxes.
Mhm.
Um, and then each country has its own process. So it was very complicated to understand the different processes around the world. First of all, very complex to deal with the customer that was not happy. He didn't like me from the first time that he met me. So and that was how it was done, was step by step, just telling him, trust me, I'm going to have that fixed. That's how we are. That's what I need to do. Really being transparent. That's how I deal with that. And
Mhm.
then the success of that is about $1 million recovery for the company, and we made him pay, showing that we care about his services, right? Showing that we care how much he was paying, that we want to do the right thing for them as well, right? According to the contract that he signed and things like that.
Mhm.
So the magic is always be transparent, always show the good work, always be on top of things and make sure that you're doing the good things for your customer, for your stakeholder.
Mm, Thank you,
Yeah.
Daniela, for sharing that. You really pointed out key nuggets there. Here, the importance of transparency. Here, ensuring you try to, buy the loyalty of your clients as well, buy their trust, um, and that is really crucial in project management. And I love how you recovered what 1 million. That
Yeah,
was that was a
about
good
that.
amount of
What's
money to recover.
the
Yeah.
yeah, I really like to remember that project because
Mm-hmm.
was something that those projects that when you start to look at it said that's impossible.
Mm.
Um, it's going to be how I'm going to organize this. There are lots of different people in the organization, but it's really nice to look back and see the positive outcome.
Okay, very nice. What
Yeah.
would you say are the key success factors for you as a project manager across board,
Um,
in ensuring that your projects are, on schedule, on budget, and within, of course, deliver the specified scope for the project? What would you say?
let me see if I'm going to answer that right. So you were saying what are the key points to have
Yeah,
success, right?
yeah.
I think it's really make sure that you have the scope very well
Mm-hmm.
understood about what you're going to do, where
Mm-hmm.
your responsibilities are,
Mm-hmm.
how you're going to work on that. Make sure how you're going to communicate, what are the answers that you're going to bring that back, in that case, to the
Mm-hmm.
next meeting, or
Mm-hmm.
when you are starting the project, what are the type
Mm-hmm.
of questions that it may come on that specific project, right? So
Yeah.
those are the things that we can always, I would say, anticipate, right? So the project can a little bit, let's say,
Can move
easy, because it's
forward
not good.
smoothly, right?
Smoothly,
Yeah.
yes, I think that's a
Yeah.
better word. Yeah, thank you.
Yes. Yes.
So I
So
think those are the
scope.
things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then make sure that you have your team. What are the roles and responsibilities that you have? Make sure that
Mm.
what are the team that you have, who is going to work with. So I think those are the
Mm-hmm.
things that helps a lot, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I hear and sharing that you understand the scope from end to end, drafting out all the requirements, leaving no stone unturned. Because a lot of projects, there's some projects I've had the opportunity to see, and I see that they would probably not have drafted the scope requirements appropriately, and
Mhm.
then start to have issues later on. Maybe some features are
Oh,
missing. That happens a lot, right?
yeah. Something very important that you said that I did not mention, requirements.
Mm,
Requirements, not because I was thinking about this specific
mhm,
project that I was
mhm,
giving an
mhm,
example, but there are different other projects that I work with. Requirements are very key. And then what's the
mhm,
outcome of that requirement, right? Who
mhm,
is going to sign off on that requirement when that's
mhm,
delivered?
mhm,
Um,
mhm,
it's super important. Super important.
mhm.
If there's that that does not exist, we are lost.
Thank you. And I hear
Yeah.
the beat about communication as well, ensuring that you're communicating right. What would you say are the best tools or techniques to communicating right? Do you have
Um,
specific tools that you use? You
I think
know?
today, based on what I've
Mm-hmm,
seen, today email is a big hit still. Nothing changing
mm-hmm,
on that. If you
mm-hmm,
send I think it's very important to send like a weekly status or what's the coming up for next week. I think those are the things that I learned in these past projects that I work with. Um,
mm-hmm,
some projects need, some projects they don't need, but when it's very complex, I think that's key. But the tools, it could vary, right? That's an important topic that you mentioned. I think email is the standard, doesn't matter where you are, you're still going to use that. But then, depending on the company that you are, sometimes a conference page is enough. But the organization needs to be ready to use those tools. So it's going to vary. That type of communication is going to vary depending on the company that you're working with, right? So if
mm-hmm,
they use Jira um, or sometimes PowerPoint, but it's really going to depend where you're working on. But I think for all of them, my feelings emails is still one of the right something that
mm-hmm.
you can consolidate everything.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much for
You're
sharing
welcome.
sharing that, Daniela. So yes, depends on the company. You could be using Jira, you could be using emails, you could be using
Mhm.
Microsoft Teams, Google Chats,
Yeah,
Google Suites. Yeah, there are a lot of
going to
them out
vary.
there.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right. So I think that the last question that I have for you, just so that you can go home, because I know that you're right now with your daughter. And I
Yes.
appreciate you so much, taking the time to do this with
Of
us.
course, my pleasure.
So what would you say would be the best advice, for project managers out there to ensure that number one, they start their project management career right, and two, they grow up the ladder in the project management space. So what would be
Hmm.
that advice for you for project managers out there?
Number one, never give up. Like the
Mm-hmm,
song. Never. I forgot the name, but there was a recast of the song that says "Never Give Up." So really, because and why I say that is because I always had in mind that I would become a project manager at some point in my life.
mm-hmm,
When I moved to Canada, one of the counselors at that time told me, "Don't even try to be a project manager here."
mm-hmm,
Mainly when you just arrived in Canada. And I said, how? Why? And I understand some people really are going to move here and be a project manager, which I think that's amazing. And some people are going to be like me, that was afraid. And then I said, I'm not going to even try, right? Let me go back on my career and let me start again. That was me, and that's what I did. I got there. So that's what I'm saying. Don't give up. Don't forget about what you want in life. Doesn't matter how it's going to be, but that's number one. And then number two, once you get there, and then there are two different paths, right? So some people they get the certification, they start to work right away. Some people they start to get their feet wet, as I mentioned, and then go to the certification. I think both of them, it's always really read the room, listen to see what how the company strategy is. Pay attention on what the stakeholder wants, and then really make strong partnerships with them, and
Mm-hmm.
show your value, show your work to them. All the stakeholders, you have to think about that you need this partnership, but of course the key stakeholders that are the owner of the money in the project, right? The who has the budget, those and the scope. So those are the people that have to be really close, and then work close to them, right? So that's my advice. Always and be on top of things. To always try to foresee what's coming up, what could go wrong.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting because beside me being optimistic, I always think about what could go wrong and what I'm going to do when it gets in a really bad shape, right? So those are the things, like be ready for that. So in summary, don't give up, strong partnerships with your stakeholders, um, be ready
Deliver
for anything
value.
that, yes, and be ready for anything that can go wrong, but being optimistic, never going back, never give up.
All right, this has been a fantastic engagement, really, and I'm so happy that I was able to get you in to do this with us.
Awesome.
I know
I
that you're very
appreciate the
busy.
invite.
Really
I was really
appreciate it.
surprised. It's so
Thank you, Daniela. It was really interesting hearing from you. And just want to say thank you so much. I hope that we have an opportunity to do this again sometime soon, hopefully.
let's see, let's see.
Thank you. Thank you again. And thanks to everyone as well for joining today's episode. And see you again next week. Bye bye.
For
Bye,
sure. Talk to
Daniela.
you later. Bye, Cindy. Bye.